Hi, and welcome to Getting Biblical, the show where I drink too much and talk about my favorite Bible stories. I am Matt Smith, your host, and thank you for joining us today. So, welcome back to the show. If you joined us last week, you know that we went off the beaten path a little bit and played around with answering some of the internet's most searched Bible questions, thanks to Google autocomplete or whatever. Hot topics like tattoos, cremation, and unicorns, and what the Bible has to say about those things. All fun stuff. But it's time to get back to actual stories, like it says in the tagline of the show. Here we are. We're gonna go back to where we left off. I think it was in Exodus, where we saw Moses. He gave the 10 Commandments to the Israelite people as they were in the desert after leaving Egypt and all that. And that was the last episode that we did before the summer break, the summer hiatus. To be really honest, part of that was because I feel like a third of all my episodes of this show have been about Moses, right? And quite frankly, I'm a little bit tired of talking about him. He's a great figure in the Bible, right? No diss, right? Not trying to say anything bad or whatever, but like, just come on already. Let's move on to something else. Like, Genesis is so packed with amazing stories of, Adam and Eve and the creation of the universe, and Abraham and Isaac, and then Jacob and Esau, and Lot's wife getting turned into a pillar of salt at the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all this, really cool stuff. Lot's daughters, drug and rape him so they can get pregnant and actually have children because everyone else in Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. Like super fun, family-friendly things like that, right? That's what we're used to talking about on this show. That was all from Genesis. And then, now we're coming up on this point. We got Moses and Exodus, and then we hit Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and not saying that there isn't valuable and important information. There aren't. Not trying to like throw Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, whatever under the bus or anything, but there's a lot of like the lineages of the Levites, right? And so begat what's his name, who begat who's a guy, and things in that whatever, and like it's just like blah 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 blah, like so much. And then there's a whole bunch of step-by-step directions on how to properly do an animal sacrifice and what to do with the poop afterwards, after you cut open the animal. Spoiler alert, the poop is usually not burned up with the rest of the sacrifice. You're supposed to throw it away. But that's what a lot of like Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are. And it's kind of difficult subject matter to drink and talk about and have fun and have it a lively, entertaining show, right? Like, those lineages get boring real quick. Like, the names are fun to listen to for about 15 seconds, and then it just all falls apart after that. I don't want to skip these books. I don't want to totally ignore them. So, we're going to give it a shot. Pun intended, for the drinking show. We will be doing a shot later, I think. But I'm also going to try to speed run the next couple of books. Today in particular, I think we're going to finish up Exodus and then get through Leviticus and then do at least one story in Numbers. So just kind of like speed run and go through. We're going to give the cliff notes that, of the things that's important or what the main topics are. And, in the future, I might go back and like delve deeper into some stuff, but I don't want to get bogged down in all the the heritages and the things and the how to do an animal sacrifice and whatever. And even though that could be like a dark episode, that could be fun. Like going deep into the animal sacrifices part of it. Like, I don't know who exactly listens to this show. Maybe there's people about you out there that are like, I've been waiting for these instructions. Like, I'm really really want to figure out how to like do an animal sacrifice. That's the whole reason I listen to this show. So maybe we'll dive into that later. I don't know. We're gonna skip it today. We're gonna do a brief overview. But that's the plan. Just kind of speed run through it, get through it as quickly as we can, pinpoint some interesting stories, still try to be entertaining, but not let us get bogged down in the minutia of some of the content matter here. But so just in case you're one of those people, and I don't know why you'd be listening at this point, but if you are one of those people that are a Bible expert and are like, oh my gosh, Matt totally skipped over a huge, massive like thing that needs to be talked about, or what, I don't know. Like, I'm probably gonna come back to it. Like, I'm skipping a couple little things on purpose just to like keep the flow together, and then I'm gonna make whole episodes out of some little things here and there. But you know, drunk Matt works in mysterious ways, so just trust the process. But that's the plan for today's show. But first, as always, let's talk about what I'm drinking. I've had this one on my shelf for about a month or so. It's a bottle that I've been dying to try for a long while now. And I've seen it pop up on social media, like on my Facebook and things, my personal accounts. And I've seen other parts of the U.S. talk about it, but it hadn't been available. It has not been available locally, to me, where I live, until just recently. One fateful day about a month ago, I happened upon it at my local liquor store, and my eyes got big, and I audibly gasped, and I bought it immediately, and came home and put it on my booze shelf, where it's been taunting me for, I don't even know, man, like 6 weeks. And I wanted to save it for the show, so I promised myself I wouldn't drink it. And today is that day, right? Here it is. It is unopened, untouched since I bought it. I have not even tried it at a bar or anything. I literally don't know what it's going to taste like, even to this right second, right? It's still pristine, right? It's a perfect bottle kept in its original form. I did have a few drinks of some other various booze, some other whiskey and bourbons that I had lying around in preparation for this episode. So don't worry, I'm definitely a couple in at this moment, but not of this bottle, not of this. So enough filibustering. The whiskey I'm drinking today, the one I'm trying today for the first time, which is the first for the show. I never come in raw and done like a tasting on air on the episode. But what I'm drinking today is called Skrewball Peanut Butter Whiskey. Yes, you heard that right. The story goes, according to their website, that this peanut butter loving bartender out in California had created a signature shot for his bar that combined whiskey and PB, peanut butter. And it became a local hit, became a thing. So as per a lot of business ideas go, they were like, we might be onto something here. Let's make it a business. Let's do it. And let's make it an actual thing, which they did. And it's been getting distributed across North America, across the United States. And, like I said, I've caught wind of it. I knew it was out there, knew it was coming. And it hadn't reached myself down here in Florida until just recently, and stumbled upon it, got it. They seem like a smaller operation as a company, like not owned by one of the massive booze conglomerates out there, Beam Suntory or Sazerac or whatever. But so they don't seem to be owned by them, and that I really respect that and want to help promote these guys. If they're a littler company, if they're not just one of the big guys, which I love the stuff that the big guys make anyway. No hate on that or whatever, but always whatever, respect for the little guys, right? Try to help them out. I just hope the product is good, especially with all the hype. Like it's like me ramping up to like a Marvel movie or any movie in general, but you get that hype, you get that like this is gonna be great, this is gonna be amazing, and then you go and watch it, and luckily with Marvel movies at least, a lot of times it's pretty decent, but sometimes you get like a Captain Marvel in there and you're like, okay, it wasn't what I was hoping for. Okay, so I don't know if I'm hyping this up too much in my own head, at least. So I'm very, very nervous, trying to figure out. I want this to be amazing. I love whiskey, as you know, and I love peanut butter, which you probably don't know, but I do. And I want this to be great. Evidently, they got double gold at last year's New York World Wine and Spirits competition. That was like August of 2018 for the flavored whiskey division. They competed against like 300 plus 320 or something or whatever, like a bunch of other flavored whiskeys out there, and they got double gold. So that's pretty awesome, and that's part of my hype. Like oh, the reviews are in, right? I read the Rotten Tomatoes score, and it seems pretty good, and I'm also really hyped about it. So, anyway, so that's it. So that's what we're drinking today: Skrewball Peanut Butter Whiskey, and I am like my heart is beating. You have no idea. I am ready to try it and open this up. Got my little Glencairn, my little nosing and tasting glass. I got my scotch, my rocks glass. We're gonna see. So this started as a shot, right? The bartender, like I said, did it as a shot for his bar. So I'm gonna sip it, I'm gonna taste it, and I'm gonna shoot it, and then we're gonna do a couple different things. So I'm gonna try it out. So here we go. Definitely smells like peanut butter. Guys, that's really good. That's really good. So it's weird. So it's kind of subtle, right? Which I like. I'm happy about that. It's definitely, yeah, you get the peanut butter, you get the whiskey. It doesn't hit you in the face too much. It's very sweet, as you would imagine, right? So I think it's not labeled as such. It's not labeled as a liqueur, but my brain is registering it as a liqueur in the realm of like an amaretto, that type of thing. Yeah, it's really good. Okay, now I gotta try it on ice and other stuff. I bet this would be superb in some different. I can't think off the top of my head what it would go good with, but like to put it in a cocktail, like a mixed drink. Use this as a base, and you'll get like the peanut butter punch in with everything else. That's good stuff, man. Like it's really good. Like it's not gonna like replace anything. It's not gonna be my new like daily drinker or whatever, right? It doesn't take away from a long-standing position in my alcohol cabinet or anything from anything else. But it's its own thing. It's a novelty, definitely. I would definitely, shots would be very cool, especially for people that don't normally drink whiskey like I do. Like just don't, if they're not quite into it and they just want to do a shot of it, this would be a great shot. It's only 35%, so it's really not as bad as some other stuff, right? So a lot of like bourbons and scotches and things come in at 40% or higher, 45%, things like that. So it's a little bit lower on all of that. So it is more like a liqueur in that kind of realm, but it's good, man. It's tasty. There's not like a burn to it. It's you're getting what you're getting. I would definitely this is more like a dessert whiskey, a dessert beverage. I could definitely see pouring a glass of this while also having a bowl of ice cream nearby and just eating, take a spoonful of ice cream and then drink some peanut butter whiskey at the same time. Definitely has this place. I am not disappointed. They killed it. They nailed it. This is what peanut butter and whiskey should taste like, I think. Yeah, no. This is good. This is a buy. It's like under $30, so it's not like a little more expensive than some of the bullshit, liqueurs and flavored things and stuff go, but it feels like quality. It tastes really great. Awesome stuff. There we go. Good stuff. Skrewball Peanut Butter Whiskey. Who knew that could be a thing? So, all right. So that's what I'm drinking today. Let's get back to Bible stuff. So we left Moses showing everyone the 10 Commandments, and his face was shining because he had seen the glory of God firsthand. He was radioactive, basically, right? He was glowing, and that's pretty much where we left off. So imagine this scene. We've got 600,000 men of Israel, and their accompanying wives and children, etc., etc. They're all in the desert, and God's just given them the 10 Commandments, the cornerstone of his covenant between them and God. And he's telling them that they're on the way to the promised land and what all he has in store for them. But he also really wants to define how this arrangement between, God and the people there, right, is going to work. Because, to actually formalize a religion. Because before this time, it was really just Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and their families, like, just talking to God and doing what he said firsthand on a, like, case-by-case basis. But here we've got so many people, right? You can't just like tell an individual. You can't, like with Noah or whatever, like, hey, go build an ark, or hey, Abraham, like, go do a sacrifice, whatever. Right? It's gotten bigger. It's gotten like so much. It's gotten out of hand a little bit. So now we got to put some protocols in place. We got to put some systems in place to make things official. So the first thing to do, God wants, is basically he wants a church. He wants a temple for himself, for God to chill in and hang out, and for them to do religious services in, all that kind of stuff. And they're going to call it the Tabernacle. And that name indicates that it's mobile, and because they're still wandering the desert, right? So you can't just build a stone temple, like synagogue, whatever type of thing. So it's got to be mobile. It's got to be like tent based, whatever. But it goes into great detail about how to build this thing and how to take it down and re-put it up in the next camp area and everything, like a traveling circus or something. The Barnum and Bailey's Big Top or something. There's so much information about how to build this thing. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. Like, one day I'll probably go back and like break it all down, because it is neat and it is interesting, and it is something that's going to come up later, like a lot. The tabernacle is constructed of like 48 15-foot tall wooden beams that are like laden over with like gold, and then there's like multiple layers of fabric to make the tent parts, and it houses the covenant, our Ark of the Covenant, which we'll talk about in the future, and just the whole, it's just crazy, like the Holy of Holies where God sits in, and just like the part for animal sacrifices, everything. The whole thing is meant to be mobile. That doesn't mean that it's half-assed. Like it is a legit thing. Like the Holy of Holies part that I talked about. Like, no one is allowed to go in there because that's where God chills out in, right? And if you go in there and you're not worthy, you will die. Like, so once a year, the high priest was supposed to go in there and do some stuff, and lore goes that they would tie a rope around his foot, around his ankle. Because, right, it's the Holy of Holies, and you will die if you go in there and you're unworthy. But you don't want someone to go in there that's unworthy and then die, and then you can't go in and get the body out, because as more people go in who are not worthy, they keep dying, and then you've just got like this pile of dead bodies in the Holy of Holies as people go in and try to like pull out the other dead bodies. So lore goes that they would tie a rope around the high priest's ankle, so that if he wasn't worthy and he died on the spot, they could then drag his ass out of the Holy of Holies. I love that idea. I don't know why that's morbidly funny to me, but anyway, so that's Tabernacle is a big deal. It stayed a big deal. It was the number one like dwelling place of God among his people for like 400 years, until the king, King Solomon had his temple built, which Solomon's temple was a big deal by itself, and blah 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 blah. And then the altar that goes into all the nuances and the details about how to make animal sacrifices, like we talked about. We're gonna zoom past the tabernacle IKEA building instructions, all the Swedish meatballs. We're passing by all that, all the animal sacrifices, and then we're going to come back in. We skipped a bunch, right? We're gonna come in to focus now on chapter 11 of Leviticus. Chapter 11. That's all about kosher laws, clean and unclean foods. But that's a whole other episode, so we're not going to get into it. But, like, don't eat pork, that type of thing. Chapter 12 talks about how when a woman has a baby, how she is unclean and how she's really not supposed to go to church or be touching things, especially holy things, and spreading her uncleanliness. Chapter 13 and 14, all about leprosy. This is the WebMD chapter of the Bible. If a type of rash shows up and it doesn't clear up in a certain amount of days or whatever, then it's like, boom, you got leprosy, biatch, and like that type of thing. It's like, there's a lot of different scenarios and examples, like, oh, if you do this and then it's not cleared up, you got leprosy. If you do this, but it does clear up, you're fine. If you do, like I said, it's the WebMD of the Bible. Also, the end of the chapter talks about like mildew in your house and what to do. Very specific. very. I don't know. Chapter 15. All right, all about semen. It's all the ways that semen makes things unclean. If you've touched some semen, don't go to church. Half of Leviticus, all of itself, is just warning about bodily fluids and how they make you unclean. Like Leviticus is the hypochondriac, right? Who's the guy? The guy from Bobby's World, right? Howie Mandel. Leviticus is the Howie Mandel of the Bible, right? No bodily fluids. You're unclean. Don't come to church. Can't. I'm not gonna shake hands. I'm not gonna like germs. Germs are everywhere. Nope, no semen. That's what chapter 15 is. I mean, okay, like jokes aside, it feels strange to talk about it, but it's actually a good thing. Like maybe the bubonic plague or whatever wouldn't have spread so much if the 1800s had kept Old Testament Israeli ordinances. Just saying, wash your hands when you're doing shit. If you're unclean, stay home, don't come out. Right, so it's fun to poke at it, oh my god, you guys are crazy, but also you know what, let's personal hygiene, really underrated back then, and the Old Testament was ahead of its game in that regard. So we'll give them credit for that. Chapter 16, the Day of Atonement, also known as Yom Kippur. That's coming up in about a week, and I have a special episode for that a little bit, so we're going to skip over that. Chapter 17, don't eat blood. It goes into when you're cooking meals and you're doing shit, don't eat animal blood, right? Don't do that, which I'm a fan of. That's fine. I don't care about it. No arguments from me. Chapter 18 is all about sex stuff. Don't have sex with your mom or your dad or your dad's new wife or your daughter-in-law or etc., etc., etc. Basically, every single scenario that you've ever seen in incest porn, chapter 18 is rebuking that. Chapter 19-20 is a pseudo recap of the Ten Commandments and the general rules on what God wants and how just not to be a dick on a variety of things. Including that verse, if a stranger from another land lives among you, don't be a dick, because y'all was strangers in Egypt. Remember how shitty that was? But chapter 21, rules for the priests, which are different than the regular laymen, right? Than the regular Israelites, the regular people. The harshest one, most of it's just make sure you're clean and doing this and don't touch dead bodies and things or whatever. But the harshest one, so the priests, unlike Catholicism, can get married, right? The Levitical priests, the rabbis and things, whatever, they can get married. The non-marriage thing is a Catholic thing, so it's not an ancient Bible time or even modern-day Jewish thing, right? So these priests could get married and they could have children and all that kind of stuff. So chapters 21 has a little bit about if a priest's daughter is a whore, and it says a prostitute, so I'm not sure how specific that is. I don't know if it's just her hoish ways or if she literally sells her body for money. which I'm not here to judge. But apparently, if you're the daughter of a priest and you go into the prostitution field of work and it is found out, then you should be burned to death. So that seems a little severe, to be honest, but that's in there. It doesn't specify that if you're just a regular, if it's just if your dad's just a blue collar worker or whatever, and you want to go into prostitution, it's just kind of generally frowned upon. If your dad's a priest and you want to go into prostitution, then you should be burned to death. So that's a little harsh. Chapter 22. More uncleanliness, bodily fluids, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Running the gamut from touching dead things. Also to specific instructions about how long a baby ox should stay with its mother after birth. Right? Very specific. Very specific. Chapter 23. Keeping Shabbat, right? The seventh day of the week and the feast. The feast of the Lord, Passover, Yom Kippur, all that kind of stuff. Great information, great things. We're skipping over all that. Chapter 24. It's a little story about people fighting, and then someone blasphemes God, and then God tells everyone to go stone the dick. Chapter 25 is kind of neat. Chapter 25 talks about the year of Jubilee, which is really cool. So God set this thing up where when they were formalized in the land of Canaan, right, the promised land where they were going to go to, that once every 50 years, land ownership would revert back to the original owners. So if you sold your land, if you came on hard times and you sold your land to someone else, in the year of Jubilee, you'd get it back, right? So it was like a way to like work around debt and things, and like 50 years is a long time. It's not like, oh, once every 10 years. Which is, I guess, a stupid kind of comment to make. Everyone knows that 50 years is much longer than 10 years, but just imagine, right? It's not a real quick it's like coming back around again or whatever. Like, it's 50 years is a long time to wait. But you had this thing where, so like, if you had land in your lineage and oh, this was my grandfather's land and my father's land and this is my land, but times are tough, so you sell it, you can bring it back into the family and keep the farm going or keep the thing going, whatever it is, right? And it's also like all these rules for how you should prorate sales of land depending on how long it is until the year of Jubilee. Very specific, very organized. It's actually kind of like, it's not like super neat. Like, it's about as neat as, what was Tom Cruise's job in, was it Mission Impossible 3 or something, where he can't tell her like, oh, I'm a spy, like I'm part of Mission Impossible. He's like, oh, I look at traffic patterns and do a thing. And you're kind of like, he's like, did you know that like if someone puts on their brakes for like 10 seconds or something up here, it's going to cause delays for 3 miles below. Like, so it's like, oh, damn, like that's pretty cool, actually. That's a really neat bit of information. It's not like super, super interesting that you'll like stay up at night or like think about it and like, oh, wow, like that's so interesting, right? Like it's a notch above like accounting or something, or like it's like kind of interesting. Like you're like, oh, like when you first hear it, you're like, really cool, interesting, but you don't stop and think about it after that. That's kind of how this chapter is, right? It is super cool, it's super interesting, and the details of prorating sales of land depending on how long it is until the 50-year year of Jubilee, but it's not like that cool. So I've been talking way too long about that, and so now we're done. Chapter 26, threats about not following God and his commandments, which kind of sort of absolutely happened for the next, I don't even know, 15 books of the Bible, right? Like all his threats, like, oh, you don't follow my rules, you turn away from me, this shit's gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen. And we saw all of that with Samson and everything else that I don't feel like bringing up right now. Other stories you talked about, like the Israelites kept fucking up and kept needing God to bail them out, and Chapter 26 lies out all the here's why you should not fall away, and they didn't listen. But anyway, chapter 27 is a bunch of stuff on tithing, which isn't just 10% of your earnings or whatever, right? 10% of your paycheck. That's like parts of your field and the firstborn of your animals and such like that. Like, just like what part of your shit is like belongs to God because he's in charge of everything. So that's kind of cool. And that is the end of Leviticus. So we're going to tie that up there. We'll go ahead and dip in. So Numbers 1 is listing of all the 12 tribes, their sons, and how big they had grown by this time. So Judah, for instance, had 74,600 people in their camp. The tribe of Benjamin was like 35,400, etc., etc. Numbers 2 goes into specific detail about where they should be placed around the tabernacle. There was a whole like map of the tribes and where they were supposed to camp. Like, have you ever seen like a if you like gone to a theme park and gotten like a cartoonish map of like where everything is located? That was Numbers 2. Like, plays that all out. Like, here's the tabernacle in the middle, and everyone else is around it. Numbers chapter 3 is the lineage and history of Moses and Aaron and their families, most notably Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, who got killed by God himself because they pissed him off, and that put a hard hit on the priest lineage line, whatever, of Moses and Aaron. So God promoted the Levites to be the dedicated priest. Numbers 4. So the tabernacle was a mobile temple, right? So every time the camp of Israelites moved, the tabernacle went with them. Everything had to be picked up and transported. And it's like one thing for like carnies at like to pick up the Ferris wheel, the funnel cake stands, all that kind of stuff to move on to the next city. But the tabernacle had like holy things in it and things that could kill you if you handled it incorrectly, if you were not worthy and stuff. So the process is a little more cumbersome. So Numbers chapter 4 goes into how to properly pack things up and who is in charge of different stations and stuff. You know, it's the IKEA instructions for the tabernacle. And there's like 3 different family groups, the Gershonites, the Merarites, and the Kohathites. And the Gershonites were instructed to carry all the curtains and cloth decorations, and the Merarites were in charge of carrying the actual wooden beams and the pillars, right, the heavy objects. And the Kohathites were in charge of carrying the furniture, but that was the scariest job because that was the shit that could kill you. Like, the Gershonites carrying the curtains weren't in danger. The Merarites were only in danger if a heavy beam, a gold-laden wooden beam fell on someone. But the Kohathites could actually die. Like the handle with care stamp on the shit that they were handling, was for real. Like, you get fucked up if that was done wrong. So that just kind of, chapter 4 just talks about all that. Chapter 5, it's a little bit more dealing with leprosy, and also like a whole lot about dealing with an unfaithful wife. I think we're gonna come back to that and skip. It's actually a great thing, but I'm running out of time. So, number 6 was the Nazirite vow, which, if you remember, was what Samson was put on Samson before birth, right before he was born. That lays out the Nazirite vow. Number 7 and 8 was all the offerings. When the tabernacle was finished, every house of every tribe had a different grocery list of what sacrifices or offerings they gave to God. And it was a lot. It was like a goat and a bull and a dove and a this and that. And blah, blah, blah. It was like so much from each different tribe. All boring. Too many details. Chapters 9 and 10 on Numbers. So cloud and fire. God, while the Israelites were out in the desert, God was there among them as a huge pillar of smoke during the day and a huge pillar of fire at night. And I'm pretty sure we covered that before, I think, right? But hopefully I'm not just dropping that on you now. But as you can imagine, like this big 1 million person camp roaming around the desert, it's hard to keep them all moving and not stay in one spot for too long, right? If you have 1 million people, we're like, all right, go ahead and sit down and camp. It's hard to get those people to get off their asses and get on moving again, right, when the time comes. So God would help move them with his form of smoke and form of, or cloud or whatever, and form of fire. So God would sit, move as a pillar of cloud, pillar of smoke, pillar of fire, or whatever, and would like stop moving, and then the whole camp would like be able to chill for a little while, and then when God got stir crazy or whatever, the pillar of cloud, the pillar of fire, would move on to the next destination, and the whole group would have to pick up their shit and move the whole camp, the whole thing, to the next spot, and set the tabernacle up again right under the smoke / fire pillar, whatever, right? That's how they knew it was time to move on. But like, I mean, like, probably bullshit. Can you just imagine, like, the pillar of smoke rests like in a valley or something? Like, oh, this is nice here. You've helped set up the tabernacle. You put up the wooden beams and the tent and everything. You go home. You set up your own tent, your own dwelling place. You mount the flat screen on the wall. You got like the Dish Network satellite all set up. You sit down in your recliner. You start to like you know what? Like, I'm tired. Just you turn on The Office for the 387th time. Michael's saying something stupid or whatever, and then like out of the corner of your eye, you see that the pillar of smoke has just started moving again. Like, it just started, just started moving back out. You're like, God damn it. Of course, the pillar of smoke like stops and like turns around, like looks at you, and you're like, sorry. But and that seems really annoying, but that's how it worked. Numbers 11 adds a small story where that part I mentioned about, okay, like the thing I just said about God being a pillar of fire to guide their way. Well, I guess people were complaining to Moses, and God got a little heated, pun intended, and sort of accidentally killed some of the people on the outskirts of the camp or something. The fire got a little out of control, and the people went to Moses, and they nicely complained about how people were being burned alive and shit, and Moses had to ask God to simmer down, which he did. And there's another story about them complaining again because they wanted meat. They were tired of the bread, the manna that was coming down, that was falling down. We talked about that a long time ago. The manna that was coming down, they said, oh, we really want meat. So God, like, I don't know, like they had like a hurricane come in and just drop a bunch of quail to feed all the million people there. But then he got mad and killed all the people that had started the complaining, all the people that started the riot or whatever about like, we want meat, we don't want manna, we don't want bread, we want meat. Like, he gave them all the meat and then killed the people that started it. So just a little, whatever, a little fun story there. 12. Okay, here in the middle of warnings against seamen and God smiting people for complaining of the lack of readily available meat and such, in the middle of all this is this story about Moses' sister. So this is the final story we're going to talk about. So one day, Moses' sister, Miriam, who we haven't heard a lot about since she helped him as a baby in the river, but Miriam, along with Moses' brother, Aaron, got extra riled up one day because they were upset that Moses had married a black woman. Some verses say he married a Cushite woman. Some say he married an Ethiopian woman. So those terms are very interchangeable as far as the original Hebrew goes, and unless I'm forgetting something or whatever, but Cushite, Ethiopian, whatever, like as far as I'm concerned, she could be from Wakanda, right? And actually, now that I just say that, I want to write that fan fiction. Like, can you imagine? Like, Moses meets and marries. I'm assuming that you've all have seen Infinity War and Endgame and everything, the Marvel movies, right? I love them, I like with all my heart. I just imagine like Moses meets and marries Okaye's great whatever grand ancestor, great grandmother, whatever, and like Moses and his Wakanda warrior wife. And she's helping them wander the desert and being a badass, and they're getting ready for war with the Canaanites or something to fight for the promised land. And a silence falls over the battlefield. And then Moses starts up with his speech or whatever, like, oh, God has delivered this to, this land to our hands or whatever. This is our land for us to take. God is with us. God will provide, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff, right? And then then stops talking for a moment. And then it's like, like in the next part, "Ya Bombay," and the rest of the army shouts it back in unison, "Ya Bombay," and then "Ya Bombay, Ya Bombay, Ya Bombay, Ya Bombay," and like I would love that for like to be a thing, like all the children of Israel and Okoye's great grandmother there as well. Like that's one of my it's such a cool scene in Infinity War, like just it puts chills up my spine, man. Like I love it every single time. Like the space dogs are coming down from Thanos' ship, and they're like Captain America's there, and like they're all like whatever, like they're all Rocket's there, Bucky's there, all everyone's there, and then but the Wakandans are there, and T'Challa is there in front with all his people, and Ya Bombay, Ya Bombay, Ya Bombay. Like just like that whole like the war chant, like war chants, man. Like that's so invigorating about war chants. Anyway, it's such a cool scene. Also, like I was a story about like I'm supposed to be talking about Bible stories, but I love Marvel shit too much. Did you know that apparently that whole scene, that whole war chant for Infinity War was improvised? Apparently the actor M'Baku, who or I can't remember his actual name, I apologize. The character of the actor that plays M'Baku, he screamed it out while they were like just lining up, waiting for them to hit. Like I guess they were like waiting for like maybe like them to say like okay and action or something, and the actor that plays M'Baku screamed that out because it was something that had been said in the Black Panther movie, I'm pretty sure. So he screams that out, and then Chadwick Boseman, T'Challa, picked up on it, and he starts chanting it, and then the whole crowd just starts chanting it too. And it wasn't scripted, it wasn't a part of it, and it's just super, super fucking cool. It's such a cool scene. Just like I said, it just moves me every time I see it. Just to have that many like just like warriors and just ready to fucking fight and do their duty. Just so manly, so fucking, and like. Not even I shouldn't even say manly. Like Okoye was in there in the middle of it. Shuri was up trying to help Vision, I guess. But like the warrior princess is there. Not just manly, just scrap that word. Just badassery all around. And I know like I'm delving deep into my love of Infinity War. But real quick, did you know apparently that word, I'm probably not even saying it right, but Ya Bombay, whatever, is actually a real word. It's not made up. It's not Wakandan. It's actually a real word from a South African language, and it means to hold fast or hold strong. And which makes perfect sense for that scene, right? When the space dogs were coming down and they had to, they're trying to like defend not only Wakanda but the Infinity Stone in Vision's forehead and everything. Hold fast, hold strong. Bang. Anyway, just so cool, man. I love that. I love it so much. So thank you for letting me talk about that. Where was I? So Moses marries this girl from Wakanda or whatever. And his sister does not like it, so she's talking against Moses because he married this girl, and it devolved into like, you think you're hot shit, Moses, like you're better than all of us because God talks to you. Well, God talks to us too. We're also prophets. You're not better than us, blah blah blah. Like, right, like, so her issue is probably racism, but then she twisted it into something else that sounded like it wasn't racism or something. I don't know. And it's the if you saw my Twitter, it's the meme of the crying, pointing like white woman on one side of the image and the cat sitting at the table on the other side, and just like so Miriam is like, how dare you marry a black woman, Moses? Think that you're better than us, and Moses is the cat, just like, the fuck, what's happening here? But God heard her say all this. God heard her. And God like calls down, they're like in like Moses' house or some shit or whatever. And like God says, hey, come to the tabernacle right fucking now. We need to talk. So they all go to the tabernacle, and God's there in a big pillar of smoke. And he calls out to Aaron and Miriam specifically. He's like, come here. We're going to talk. And they like walk into like the cloud of smoke that God is at that, like, I was gonna say like the God is in, but like the cloud of smoke is God. So anyway, so they walk into the cloud of smoke that is God, and he's like, here's the deal. Yeah, Some people I choose to be prophets for me. And if I want them to know something or work on something or whatever, I tell them what I want through visions and dreams and things like that. Moses is not that type of prophet, just for the record. Moses is my boy. I don't give Moses dreams or visions or bullshit. I tell him. We talk for reals, which literally makes him better than you, Miriam. Like, fuck off, you stupid bitch. And like who do you think you are to be on the same level as fucking Moses? Like it blows my mind that you think you can just come up and start complaining about my chosen prophet. And like God got heated. God's like, I can't even. You got me fucked up. So God is mad, and the pillar of smoke leaves, and then there, just as the smoke leaves, everyone sees Miriam, and the Bible says she was completely covered. She was white as snow with leprosy, right? Like I feel like God was like, so you want to be a racist bitch, huh? Like God channeled Exhibit for a second. Like I heard you like being white, so we put some white on your white. We hooked you up with leprosy. Like you're in your trunk, more leprosy on leprosy, like white on white. And Moses is like, that's horrible. Moses is like, holy shit. And he goes to God and says, hey, she's still my sister. Leprosy is horrible. You made your point. Can you heal her now, please? And God is like, you know what? This is one of my favorite diss lines in the whole Bible. God goes to Moses and God says, hey, if her father had spit in her face, would she not feel ashamed for at least a week? Put her outside the camp with her leprosy ass. Make her go live with all the other leprosy people for a week, and then she'll be healed, and then you can bring her back in. And that is exactly what happened. And like she had to live with leprosy and outside the camp in the leprosy village or whatever, like the leprosy slums or something, and for a whole week, and then she got healed and came back inside, and hopefully she was never racist again. Like hopefully God made his point. Like how dare you? Like it doesn't specifically talk about her racism, I guess, but you know, like the fact that Moses had married, you know, like a black girl or whatever, like God didn't give a fuck about that. Did not care. Anyway, so that's the story of the time that Miriam got leprosy because she was a racist. And that's all the time we have. We tried to speed run through Leviticus, and now we're halfway through Numbers. So I'd say it's been a pretty decent day, decent episode. That's our show. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you have a fantastic week. Cheers.